I am seeing quite a few more folks hop on here. There's a lot of people on the call, and we are going to go ahead and get started right on time. If you are fired up about overturning Citizens United with the 28th Amendment, you're in the right place. It is 8:30 East Coast, and we always try to do our best to start these calls on time. So we're going to get going. For those that don't know, my name is Ben Gubitz, Associate Director over here at American Promise, and want to welcome everyone tonight to another one of our American Promise Citizen Uprising core team calls. This is the third in the series, so you're getting in just at the beginning. And each of these calls are going to recur on the second and fourth Thursday of each month, so please mark your calendars. And thanks to everyone that's taken time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening and are stepping up to save democracy. So we have some great guest speakers here with us tonight, including Kellen Arno from Grandview Campaigns and our good friend Sam Bailey-Harris, if you guys will remember last time, who taught an excellent letter to the editor training back to follow up on our LTE training. And I'm going to introduce them in a few minutes, but just wanted to start with a few opening remarks. And I know that Vicki is on the phone, so I hope that Vicki in the Twin Cities won't mind me sharing this. But I had the great pleasure of traveling to the Twin Cities a couple weeks ago to launch a new American Promise Association there. And our lead organizer, Vicki Barnes, put together a really phenomenal group of committed citizens that are now in action working to pass the We the People bill through the State House in Minnesota. And shortly after my visit, I spoke to Vicki, who told me what had happened since my visit. In an email, she said, the energizing Ben Gubitz came to town last week and welcomed a dozen of us to the group. We are small but motivated. His presentation really sealed the deal for some of them. It's daunting at first to think that any of us are qualified to discuss a constitutional amendment, especially with elected officials. But his presentation demonstrated that we, the citizens, are the only ones that can make this happen. And shortly after my visit out to the Twin Cities, a amendment resolution was introduced in the Minnesota State House, the We the People Amendment. And Vicki had attended a town hall meeting for Congresswoman Betty McCollum at the time, and she wanted, I think, to ask a couple questions. Wasn't called on for questions, so she stayed after the meeting. And had ended to have her. She stayed after to have her questions addressed, and she ended up speaking with a state senator and a state representative, and talked to them about the We the People Act. And they ended up being very supportive. And not only were they very supportive, but they embraced Vicki with a huge hug and thanked her for organizing at the grassroots level to advance this historic cause, which I thought was just amazing. And so American Promise doesn't necessarily promise hugs from state legislators for everyone, but who knows? But, folks, that's what this is really all about. Our advocacy has, really tremendous power to influence our elected officials. And these calls, these core team calls, are designed to make us better advocates and better spokespersons for a 28th Amendment. And so the more we learn, the more skills that we kind of put in our toolbox and exercise these muscles, the more impact we'll have, and that's what these calls are all about. So I'm going to do a couple more things before I hand it over to our great guest speaker, Kellen Arno. And the first is to tell you how excited I am to introduce some new members of the American Promise staff, as well as our National Advisory Council. So just this week, we welcome Johannes Epke as our in-house counsel and Emily Mulder as our communications and research analysts. Welcome, Johannes and Emily. And we also, okay. Oh, sorry about that, folks. I think we had a little bit of a technical difficulty. We're all up and running now. So I was introducing our new members of the American Promise Advisory Council, Professor of Law at Harvard University, John Coates, Professor of Tamara Piety, University of Tulsa College of Law, and then Corporate Executive Jack Doty. For those that have not yet had the time to visit the American Promise website, these three new advisory council members will join former Republican Senator from Wyoming, Alan Simpson, former Congressman from Iowa, Jim Leach, Republican Jim Leach, Doris Kearns Goodwin, former Democratic State Senator Nina Turner, former Montana Supreme Court Justice Jim Nelson, former Governor Mike Dukakis, Bob Monk, Judy Wicks, Joe Kearns-Goodwin, Ella McGrail, Reverend Catherine Henderson, Khalil Berg, Matt Paskey, and Donald Baird. So all of these great leaders believe in the fight for a 28th Amendment to overturn Citizen United. As we gear up for the National Citizen Uprising, we continue to expand our capacity. And I know that quite a few folks had questions after the last call, and I just quickly like to clarify the difference between the Citizen Uprising core teams, these core team conference calls, and then American Promise Associations, or as we like to call them, APAs. One of the ways that American Promise is different is our commitment to transpartisan work and finding ways to work with Democrats and Republicans and independents and inspiring them to lead on a 28th Amendment. And another way that American Promise is a little bit different is our commitment to really supporting action and to building teams to work together. So with the Citizen Uprising actions in all 50 states by the end of 2018, we don't have necessarily time to build teams and travel to all the American Promise Association launches in all 50 states like I did in the Twin Cities 2 weeks ago. That's why we started the Citizen Uprising core teams. So you can just declare yourself a core team member and jump on our core team conference calls the second and fourth Thursday of the month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, as I mentioned. And so what I'd like to do is encourage you to bring others to the core team calls so you won't be on them alone, and we'll work hard to make these calls inspiring and action-oriented. So please join us in either joining a Citizen Uprising core team or in asking our staff support in launching a new American Promise Association or APA in your community. The APAs are where we work with you to build a team around you, and then we'll travel to your city to launch the APAs. Again, as I mentioned, recently did in Twin Cities, and we'll be doing in Santa Fe, New Mexico here in about a month. And so we will send a form out to everyone tomorrow so you can signal your commitment to joining the core team. And for those of you that are brand new to this fight for the 28th Amendment and are feeling maybe a little bit lost, that's perfectly okay. Our next core team call and core team calls moving forward will start about 30 minutes earlier for people that want an introduction and more background on Citizens United and the national fight for a 28th Amendment, kind of for those that are really starting from the beginning. And so now I'd really love to kick the call over to our wonderful guest speaker, Kellen Arno. Kellen Arno is the founder of Grandview Campaigns. It's a California-based company that specializes in managing ballot access and grassroots campaigns for a wide variety of causes. And just about for 2 decades, he's collected signatures and canvass in every state across the country that really provides him with this unique insight into the diverse laws, practices, and perspectives that make up the American political landscape, essentially. And so while a number of the folks on this call are not necessarily from ballot states or states that allow for ballot initiatives, I think you'll still find this information extremely informative and exciting for the 28th Amendment. And in the next call, we'll be discussing statewide as well as local legislative resolutions, again, for folks that live in states that aren't ballot states, so to speak. So as Kellen is speaking, please be thinking about any questions you might want to ask him for our Q&A session. And as soon as he's finished, we'll open it up for Q&A. So, Kellen, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Excellent. So thank you very much for having me on. I'm really excited to speak to you guys today. I've had the great fortune of working with Ben and the team at American Promise here for a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about both the magnitude of what American Promise and all of you guys are setting off to do in your community, and obviously the importance of it as well. And like Ben mentioned, my focus and certainly my career to date has been focused on managing ballot access campaigns. So that ranges from collecting a couple hundred signatures for a small candidate in the community, all the way up to collecting millions of signatures for ballot initiatives for reform or even ballot access for new types of political parties. On top of that, I've also got a lot of experience doing some grassroots organizing. One of the things that just kind of came to mind as Ben was talking there is a lot of the things that maybe we'll talk a little bit about tonight, and then certainly talk about more in great depth about signature gathering. There's a lot of tips and tactics in terms of how we communicate to people in our communities. that I think are certainly helpful for collecting signatures, but also really helpful for just generally organizing and sort of spreading the word about what the 28th Amendment movement is trying to do. And so my hope here is real quickly, I just kind of wanted to give an overview to everybody here on the call. You guys are obviously the front lines and leadership of this movement, and so I wanted to communicate a little bit about what we're working on together with American Promise to sort of help create and build support and resources for this particular tactic that American Promise and the citizen leaders across the country are going to be taking on. And then I wanted to sort of give a quick primer on Signature Gathering 101, just what you guys need to know, particularly for those of the folks who are in states that are going to be attempting a ballot initiative. And then kind of talk maybe a little bit about some organizing tips, and then just leave it open for some Q&A. So with that, I think the first thing I kind of wanted to share is just sort of an overview about why signature gathering, why the ballot initiative. And one of the things that I think is really great about American Promise is they are really trying to do all of this work in close partnership with the communities. And while it's really impactful to certainly go across and talk to legislators and try to pass legislative resolutions, unfortunately, sometimes it's not always enough. And so in 26 states and then in the District of Columbia, we have the right to petition our local government, our local and state government, and tell them we demand an issue be voted on at the next election. And so that's a really powerful thing. It's really unique to America. I mean, certainly a couple other countries have it across the world, but it's something that certainly I'm really proud to have. And so it's something that we're exploring the best way to take advantage of in a good chunk of states for the 2018 cycle. And so what I'm working on right now, along with the entire American Promise team, is building out not just a strategy about sort of what do we need to know, what are the ballot access laws and sort of compliance requirements in each of these states. What is the calendar that we're looking at? So a lot of these states, we could start collecting signatures in theory tomorrow. Other states give us very tight timeframes about when we are allowed to actually go out and collect signatures. From there, I know Ben and his team has a host of other ideas about what's needed from the movement, and I'll be working to sort of try to help build out the materials you guys will need to support the work that's going on. So if you are a citizen leader here and you've sort of raised your hand and said, I'm willing to participate in this signature gathering effort to help my state circulate a ballot initiative to call for and declare a need for 28th Amendment, we want to make sure that you have all the information you need to know exactly what it is you're doing, how best to do it, and then certainly have resources to get questions answered and things like that. And so kind of moving on from there, I think just wanting to share with you guys a big front-end focus of our work right now is getting very explicit about what it is you need to know to both collect a signature for this ballot initiative effort in these different states, and then certainly what actually you just need to know about somebody who can sign one of these petitions. And so for the most part, the petition process is really just reserved for registered voters in each of these states. Some of the things that we're looking at as we go through and start to put together the information is trying to figure out what are the other rules that sort of govern the signature gathering process. One of the things I've learned from my work across the country is there are some laws and sort of some requirements that are uniform. So in every state, you got to be, a registered voter to sign a petition. Generally, you got to include your signature. You got to say on the petition itself, you got to write down the address where you're registered to vote, so that it sort of shows the State Board of Elections that you're sort of a unique person, and they can match up your signature with the voter roll to verify it belongs to you. But then from there, there's all these extra layers of complexity. So some states, like I'll just use a state like Ohio, for example, they require signatures to be distributed a certain way across the state, meaning in California, we might be able to collect all of our signatures from San Francisco. And from the state's perspective, they're not too bothered about where they come from. But Ohio, we actually have to collect a certain amount of signatures from 44 of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio. So just kind of a quick primer on that, you can imagine that organizing in a state that has a distribution requirement is a little bit more thorough and complex than just organizing in states that don't. And so we're going to be putting together, we are in the process of putting together and finalizing a lot of materials that help explain what the rules are in your state, and then obviously support that with organizing tips to make that happen. We are also working on making sure that we can make qualification to the ballot a reality. So on top of training all of our volunteers and putting them in connection to one another and really making this a true movement, one of the things I've learned is all the goodwill, all the passion, unfortunately, it alone won't help you get qualified to the ballot. So we got to make sure that the signatures come in a really uniformed way, and that's where American Promise is going to get very helpful, and make sure that they're submitted in the correct way, in the correct time frame, and really that we work with the state and work within the laws to get it counted. Signature gathering for a ballot initiative is a very, very detail-oriented and thorough process, and it's really powerful when volunteer signature gathering drives get out there, and I've been a part of a lot of them that I'm really proud of. But I think it's important to note that it really is a blend of passion and then really sticking to the rules and sort of following process. And so we're really trying to create a guidebook that I think can help everybody, whatever community you might be in, know everything you need to know to take this really great idea and turn it into a reality. I think the only other thing that I really wanted to talk about is that, our job really, I think, is to help give you the information that you need to know to go out and get signatures, but we also want to try to give you the tools you need to do it well. And so we'll be putting together or distributing rather soon, a great toolkit that we hope can help you understand, what are some tips to be an effective signature gatherer out in the community. So this ranges everything from, where are the places that you should go, where have we found success, not just in this particular movement, but in similar grassroots organizations and efforts before. We definitely want to give good tips about, we have this, this idea, but what's the best way to communicate that, and what's probably going to be a 15-second or so elevator pitch, quote unquote, that you're going to have to talk to somebody who may or may not be interested in signing your petition. So we'll provide sort of good sample ideas about how to stop neighbors, how to talk to somebody at a farmer's market, how to communicate to somebody at an event you're hosting. So we'll sort of go through that and share all the tips and practices and sort of secrets of good, successful movements like this to really resource everybody in a way where you feel comfortable getting out there and doing it. And so that's a real broad overview of sort of what we're working on. Really excited and proud to work on with the entire American Promise team and their entire movement. I would love to now answer any sort of specific questions people have, and then obviously can make myself available in the future as we get started out in our community.
Yeah, that's awesome, Kellen. And I just want to add here, as folks are thinking of their questions, that the reason why we're doing ballot initiatives is not just for the sake of doing statewide ballot initiatives, right? This is really an effort to hold our elected officials accountable to the will of the people, as we know that virtually 8 out of 10 Americans agree that Citizens United was wrongly decided, and there's something that we need to do something about it. We think that's the 28th Amendment. And so, Kellen, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about how the use of ballot initiatives is not only an effective organizing tool to rally people for a movement, but can actually translate into votes in Congress. Again, sure. As folks are thinking of their questions. And then I'll also add, if you do have a question for Kellen or myself, please press 1 on your keypad so I know that you have a question and I can unmute you. So press 1 on your keypad if you have a question now. And Kellen, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about that, that'd be great. Yeah, and so it's actually a great thing to learn, and it's one of those things too that's unique in every state. But I think the power of a ballot initiative is really 2 or 3-fold. I think the first and foremost is what you're doing as a citizen is you are essentially telling your elected officials, we think this is important, and we the people want to be heard on it. We want a chance to vote on this, and it's not just me; it's the voice of sometimes millions of other of my fellow citizens. And so it's this very powerful moment where you are basically delivering a petition to your government asking for this to be voted on, usually in the next election. A little bit more technically, it actually gets very interesting because beyond just sort of a ballot opportunity, the mere act of getting out there and collecting signatures is a really powerful tool for folks to talk about this issue at the legislative level. I think there's more than one occasion where people have collected signatures on an issue that's really important to them, and just the collection of those signatures has made the legislature in their state wake up and say, hey, this is an issue that's important to our constituents. And sometimes they actually take the action that you want them to take before you even turn your signatures in. It ends up becoming this very powerful tool to tell legislators about what's important and what's not.
And then the last thing that's really interesting is there's a handful of states where we may collect signatures and get qualified to get put on the next ballot, and that can actually really start the kind of conversation we need to have with the legislative body. And there's a couple of really great examples across the country where even after going out and getting all those signatures and getting on the ballot, the legislature has decided, you know what, we heard you, we understand, and they've actually ended up taking it off the ballot and just enacting it directly into law. Most legislatures have the legal opportunity to do that, and so I think it's a good question, and what it really underscores is that the petition process really is this powerful megaphone that I think really speaks loudly about people's passion for a particular idea. And my experience, again, across a variety of states has been that legislators really listen. I think that there's a real ear to sort of hearing about what comes out of this process, and I would expect, given the passion of this issue, it's going to be particularly loud.
Yeah, I agree, Kellen. I think it's certainly making a statement. So we're going to go out for some questions. Again, press 1 on your keypad, or really actually any number on your keypad if you have a specific question for Kellen or myself. And if you've ever had any question about how statewide ballot initiatives work, you're talking to the man that has the answers, that has done this in almost every state, if not every state that allows for it. So let's go to Anna Callahan. Anna, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Berkeley, California.
Oh, hey, Anna.
Hey. So my question is, where does American Promise coalition of organizations trying to pass this kind of amendment, like move to amend or vote back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So where do we stand? Was that the question?
Just how where are you? How are you different from them? How are you working with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anna. So as you know, American Promise is a relatively new organization. We've worked very, very well with Move to Amend and Wolfpack and Public Citizen, People for the American Way, lots of these national organizations and local organizations on particular projects, and they do great work and will continue to do lots of great work. And one of the things that we're hoping to add is a real commitment and almost fierce discipline to organizing in a cross-partisan fashion. As I mentioned, kind of leading by example, as I talked before about our cross-partisan advisory council with people like Republican Senator Alan Simpson, Republican Congressman Jim Leach, et cetera. And we think that the movement certainly needs this cross-partisan balance. If you look at the makeup of state houses, nationwide, as well as our current Congress, it's really necessary in the winning of a 28th Amendment. And the other thing I'd like to say is, kind of offering this structure of support and training that these core team calls and these American Promise associations will be all about, that we'll be teaching like letters to the editor training and how to meet with our member of Congress and role playing and lots of different things that I think will be a really unique approach to training volunteers, as well as making sure just that they're comfortable to be conversation shapers in their community, so that they become more competent and confident with the subject matter. And that's something that we're really committed to doing, and very much looking forward to working with all of these partners on things like these statewide ballot initiatives that Kellen's talking about. So I hope that answered your question, and if you have a follow-up, let me know, and you can hit one again, okay? So let's go to, want to try to squeeze in some more of these. Let's go to Anna Califero. Anna, where are you calling in from?
Oregon.
Hi, Anna.
Hi. My question is, are there any states where the legislature has already passed something to support a 28th Amendment?
I think I had a hard time hearing the first part of your question. If you could keep that, Anna, that'd be good.
Are there any states that have already, where the legislature has already passed a resolution to support the 28th Amendment?
Yes, actually, that's a great question. There have been many states, actually 18 in fact, that have called for a 28th Amendment. Your home state of Oregon is actually one of them. However, Oregon is also a state that does allow for the ballot initiative process. So you're one of the lucky states that does have that option. And while Oregon's legislature have called for a 28th Amendment, we'd certainly like to see the citizens have their voices heard on this issue. So we'd be very much interested in moving forward on a ballot initiative in Oregon. I can rattle through the list, hopefully off the top of my head. If anyone wants to jump in and help me out, that'd be great too. But I think it's California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, I think, as I mentioned, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and West Virginia. So lots of states. In addition to the states, about 750 towns and cities across America have passed local 28th Amendment resolutions, which we're also hoping to see an uptick in during this Citizen Uprising campaign. But that's a great question, Ann. Thank you. So let's lots of hands up here. Let's go to Chris de Bonneville. Chris.
Yes, hi. I'm calling from southwestern Virginia in Appalachia, and first of all, I have to really applaud you guys for being so together and with a really thorough explanation of what the 28th Amendment is all about. I do know that this area is suffering economically and financially tremendously. And as you can imagine, coal has been king around here for a long time, and it's very much the Bible Belt. So I welcome any information you have that can help sway people's hearts and minds in a traditionally very, very conservative area. So, I mean, my own background is that I was very much a part of the civil rights movement and helped to build houses for the Poor People's Campaign and all of that. So I know the value of grassroots organizing. But, I'm in some ways I'm appalled at what's happening in the country. But I also know that in the battle between light and dark, light won a long time ago. And that's why I share your commitment to get this passed and to have it passed yesterday. So any information you can send me or any kind of education tools you can do as far as college campuses in this area go, I know that would be very welcomed.
Yeah, Chris, would love to do that, and we can certainly connect offline as well. There is a whole host of resources on AP Connect, which is kind of the American Promise member portal, that has very specific resources in terms of how do we speak to the business community about this, how do we speak to folks that might be a little bit more conservative about this, with testimony from business leaders, from faith leaders, from articles from Alan Simpson on why Republicans should support a 28th Amendment. There's a whole host of those things that are in AP Connect, and I'd be happy to point you there. But go ahead and shoot me an email, beng@americanpromise.net, and I can help you point you in some of those places.
Oh, that sounds super. Great. I welcome that. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the question, Chris. So let's go out to Ken Chestek. Ken's calling in from Wyoming. How you doing, Ken?
Doing well, thanks.
Yeah, what was your question for Kellen? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for Kellen. And this is, I'm going to get more into the nuts and bolts and in the weeds here with this question. As you know, Ben, we're working here in Wyoming. We're a ballot initiative state, and we are working on starting up a petition drive, which we're going to launch this spring and go through the summer and into next year. We had 18 months to do it. Wyoming has a fairly high threshold for collecting signatures, and it's a percentage. It's 15% of the last general, and the last general, of course, was 2016 with a very, very high turnout. So we've got a pretty high bar here to get over.
Yes.
A lot of other people have gone before us and tried to get things on the ballot. It's a very rarely successful process. I think somebody told me the last time a citizens initiative got onto the ballot was maybe 20, 30 years ago. One just died this past February. So my question is, and I've talked with the people, the last one that went through was a petition to get medical marijuana on the ballot. It was sponsored by NORML, and I can sort of see how that one might not have stirred the passions of a lot of voters the way that the 20th Amendment one probably will stir. But I was talking with some of the people who tried that and failed, and they said that going out, standing on street corners and going to shopping centers and doing all that kind of stuff to gather petitions. And I thought to myself, that's probably not the most effective way to do it. I'd like to hear your thoughts on would a campaign-style door-to-door canvass be more likely to be successful? So what are your thoughts on
great question. Absolutely. And yes, Wyoming, and I'll just sort of say this not to be negative, but to always welcome challenge. Wyoming is probably one of the hardest states out there to qualify a ballot initiative, and so it's neither surprising that there's been limited success there, but it shouldn't be taken, I don't think, as a sign that nobody can do it. I just think it's a sign about how serious we have to organize and how serious we have to take it. To answer your question, I think that you're right. To be totally straightforward, there is, I think, a more traditional campaign in Wyoming works. And here's what I have learned. States where there's a distribution requirement, and so in Wyoming there is, and you have to actually collect signatures in 16 of the 23 counties. And what I think that does in Wyoming is it means that you have to have an issue that resonates across the political spectrum, which I think we have here. And so, an issue like medical marijuana, it might do okay in some of the larger cities or areas where folks are a little bit more accustomed or aware, but maybe not in some of the more rural communities or smaller cities where they haven't seen those sides of the issues the same way. One of the things I think gives me a lot of confidence about the 28th Amendment is there is fairly broad-based support for that. I think oftentimes folks think that it's things are only liberal or conservative issues. I think this is one of those very rare issues that is, to Ben's word, very transpartisan. And so I think whenever you have a distribution requirement, you have to really think about, how do you get in front of a diverse audience as possible and also as wide of an audience as possible. And so while I would always tell volunteers, I think that you should keep a petition on you at all times because you never know when you're going to get to strike up a conversation. I don't think standing in front of stores is going to be the kind of thing that really makes this engine drive in Wyoming. I think it's about house parties. I think it's about door knocking. I think it's about going to churches. I think that it's about going, do go to college campuses, do figure out a way. There's often in Wyoming and across the Plain States, they frequently have not just farmers markets, but broader markets, I know, that sell everything, that are sort of good meeting points and gathering points. So set up a kiosk wherever there's real thoroughfares of people. I think the problem with some of the storefront stuff is it tends to be somewhat of a more, what's the word I'm looking for? The interaction that happens is is truncated quite a bit, and it's a lot more difficult to sort of talk civically in that engagement. And I think this is the kind of community, particularly in some of the areas where they're much more used to person-to-person politics, you really have to make an effort to have a conversation and meet people halfway. And I think that's done much better in a more traditional campaign setting. So I'd be happy to talk with you offline and talk more specifically about Wyoming and ideas I have there, because I've had some success collecting signatures in Wyoming. You're right, not recent success on a statewide initiative, but I've done some other work there, and I've learned some lessons there that I'd be happy to share with you. But I think the takeaway for the whole group here is that, and the gentleman from Virginia who spoke a second ago, Chris, I think you made a really astute point, which is that we really have to tailor our strategy and our tactics and our message to the audience. And I think that's true in signature gathering, and it's true in a lot of organizing and communication. So I think we want to win, and so we got to be smart about it. And I think there is no one manual about how to do this. We've got to be very flexible, and so look forward to working with you on that.
So that was a great question, Ken. Kellen's going to be working with us on this effort quite a bit in Wyoming. And we'll have a lot of time for follow-up. But there's a lot of folks with their hands up, and I think we've got time for a couple more questions before we go over to Sam Daly-Harris. So let's hear from Eve Major. Eve, where are you calling in from?
Santa Cruz, California.
Hey, Eve, welcome.
Hi, thank you for calling on me. I'm just the first-time call. I had a question to trying to understand the nuts and bolts of how this works. If 18 states like California have already indicated, the state legislatures have already said we approve a 28th Amendment, why would we go and put volunteers to work in gathering ballot signatures in those very same states versus sending them to do other work in other states,
that's a great,
for example?
That's a great question, Eve. And so I guess, Kellen, I'll take that one, and then you can follow up and add anything. So California actually, in November of 2016, just passed Prop 59, which was an overturned Citizens United ballot initiative. California, along with Washington State, with I-735, with a tremendous effort out in Washington. Both of those states passed ballot initiatives calling on Congress to overturn Citizens United. And just as a side note, Colorado and Montana had also previously done that in 2012. And so the reason, I think getting to the heart of your question, the reason why we're asking for folks to do ballot initiatives in states, even if their state legislature has called for an amendment, is it's much more powerful to have the citizens speak on this. We can certainly hold our elected officials in Congress more accountable to the will of the people if the citizens can stand up and say, we demand this, as opposed to the state legislature doing it for them. So any chance that we have to have the citizens stand up and say that this is something that we demand and something that we want to happen, it makes the case a lot more powerful. And as we've seen in most states, these ballot initiatives pass by overwhelming margins, some to the tune, like in Montana, at 76%. Which sends a very, very powerful message. The other reason why is through the signature gathering process, as we're organizing for ballot initiatives, we're having hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of conversations with our neighbors about Citizens United and the 28th Amendment, which is, constantly increasing awareness and providing a real education value to the process. So we do it for a number of reasons, and I think by educating our communities further and allowing citizens to step up and have their voice heard is a really critical component of movement building. And Kellen, I'm not sure if you had a follow-up there, but those are my thoughts. And great question, Eve.
Oh,
no,
sorry, I apologize. I was muted there as well. I don't have as much of a follow-up other than to say I think that it's a question that organizers and canvassers and volunteers are going to get, not just about what happens in my state if we've already had a brave legislator who's been able to stand up and pass a resolution, but certainly folks are going to ask sort of what's the next step after we win at the ballot. And I think part of what's so unique about this undertaking, and certainly anything worthwhile is always going to be challenging, is that it is fairly unprecedented to have this kind of movement. We obviously have histories of movements leading to constitutional amendments before, but this sort of citizens-led, ground-up movement, and I think this is about utilizing as many tools as we have in the toolkit to keep pressure, not just on legislators, but pressure on the issue. I think we unfortunately live in a time where it's challenging to keep the focus on individual and particular political issues, and as much as we can keep the spotlight on this one, through our signature gathering work, through the conversations that come out of the signature gathering work, and certainly even just with legislators, I think in the end, the goal of sort of reaching the sort of national consensus we all know is needed, I think becomes a lot more realistic.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Kellen. So we want to kick it over to Sam Daly-Harris and make sure that we have enough time for the next portion of the call. I still see a number of hands up, so please send me an email with your question, beng@americanpromise.net. We might have a chance at the end of the call to get to it, so I'll make sure that I keep those virtual hands raised. But if we didn't get to you, my apologies, and send an email to beng@americanpromise.net. But would love to welcome our good friend Sam Daly-Harris after I thank Kellen for joining us tonight. Kellen, it's just amazing to work with you. Your experience is going to be just invaluable to this movement in the fight for the 28th Amendment. If you can stick on for a little while, maybe we'll have some time at the end of the call to answer some questions.
Thank you. Absolutely will do.
Yeah, thanks, Kellen. So over to our good friend Sam Daly-Harris. Sam, how you been, man?
Great. Thanks, Ben. Can I just go for it?
Go for it.
Okay. Great. Hi, everyone. In a moment, I'll want to hear from anyone who had a letter to the editor published since our training on the last call 2 weeks ago. But first, I want to make a few points. I did a talk at the Princeton Public Library yesterday titled Writing Checks, Signing Petitions, and Protest Marches. Is that all there is? It was standing room only. One of the questions asked was this: Do you think letters to the editor matter anymore with so much social media around? My point was that when you're a member of Congress from Salt Lake City or Seattle or Santa Fe, and you're in Washington, D.C. 4 days a week, when you're in D.C., where do you turn to get a pulse of your congressional district? I say you still turn to your local newspapers. If you're a congressman from Miami, you still check the newspapers back home. Another point I wanted to make was this. Whether you will be engaged in a statewide ballot initiative or you're pushing a resolution on a 28th Amendment in Congress, your state legislature, or your city council, letters to the editor, and eventually op-eds and editorials, will be tools you'll want in your toolbox to get the word out, to build and show support, and to shape public opinion. The last thing I wanted to say was this. We're doing this training on having letters to the editor published. If you've never had a letter to the editor published before, and you're not nervous about writing a letter, sending it, and having it published, then you're not normal, and congratulations. Normal people are somewhat terrified about going out on a limb like this, afraid they'll get it wrong, be embarrassed, set the movement back a few years. So if you think writing letters to the editor is not your cup of tea, you might just be experiencing the normal level of fear. Don't let it stop you. We're here to help you move out of your comfort zone and have a breakthrough, to see yourself in a new light. So I believe 2 people on this call had letters to the editor or op-eds published, and there might be more that I don't know about. Ryan Daughtry and Joyce Sanchez. Let me ask if Ryan is there and unmuted. Ryan, can you just say hi and see if we can hear you?
Hi, Sam. I'm here.
Okay, great. So here's the deal. I'm going to ask you a few questions. What was the newspaper your letter was published in?
It was the SAC-B in Sacramento.
Okay. Now, I looked it up, and the circulation of the Sacramento Bee is 279,000. So your letter could have been read by thousands or tens of thousands of people. Congratulations. Had you ever had a letter to the editor published before, or was this the first one?
This was the first one.
Wow. Okay, great. Okay. So you said in an email that they took your second letter. Did you send one in, they rejected it, and then you sent another? And what had you keep going? Describe that little scenario.
Sure. I drafted one shortly after our first call a few weeks ago, and then checked just periodically to see if it had been published, and it wasn't. And then I saw another article that I thought was on point, so I wrote another one and submitted it, and then checked, and it was published today.
Great. Bravo. Congratulations. So what were your thoughts before you started writing that first letter 2 weeks ago? This is going to be easy, or I don't know if I can do it, but I'll give it a try, or what were you thinking? Can you remember before you even gave it a shot?
Sure. I was a little uncertain how it would work, and the thing that was really problematic for me was there's a limit of 150 words, and so my first draft was over 300 words, and so it was tough editing it down to something that was on point, but within that limit.
Okay, great. So how did you learn that your letter was published or was going to be published? Did they write you or call you and tell you it would be published, or did you or someone else see it in the paper?
No, I just saw it in the paper. It was funny. I got the email from Ben about the call tonight, and I just happened to check online to see if it had been published, and there it was.
And how did you feel when you first saw the letter and read it?
Felt great. It kind of inspired to do more.
Okay, great. And so I've got one more question. I don't need you to actually answer it. It's really a question for everyone who does this. Did you send a link to your letter to your members of Congress or state legislators? Maybe even, I'm not saying that you did this, but maybe even followed up on the phone to one of their aides to make sure they saw the letter and post it on social media. Did you post it on social media yet or not yet?
No, I haven't done anything.
Okay, great. So here's the deal. I'm going to urge you and anyone else who gets a letter to the editor published to post it on social media, send a copy to your members of Congress, maybe follow up on the phone. So, Ryan, great job. Congratulations.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, bravo. So let's see if anyone else on the call, not Joyce yet, she's a ringer, anyone on the call had their letter published since our call 2 weeks ago. Press 1 on your keypad to let Ben know you'd like to say something, and he'll call on you. Don't be shy. Now, there may be no one else, but let's see if anyone else had their letter to the editor published. Press 1 and let us know you'd like to speak.
Looks like Al Griffiths. Hey, Al, where are you calling in from?
Sebastian, Florida.
Hey, Al.
Great. And where in Florida? Say it again.
Sebastian?
Okay, great. So what newspaper was your letter published in?
Well, it actually hasn't been published yet, but they sent me an email and said they were going to publish it. And
Brilliant.
I went through the process of having it edited down and that whole bit.
No, you edited it or they edited it?
I did.
Oh, you did. Okay, great. And what's the name of the paper?
It's Treasure Coast News.
Okay, great. And have you ever had a letter to the editor published before?
No.
Okay, congratulations. So great. Congratulations. Just curious, is there anyone else? Great job. I'm just curious, and we'll take a second on this. Ben, I don't know if anyone else is pushing 1 on their keypad to know that they had one or they've got word that it's going to be published.
No, not yet, Sam.
Oh, okay. So let's keep going. And Joyce Sanchez, who Ben introduced 2 weeks ago as a new staffer, had an op-ed published in her college newspaper, which was just terrific. And congratulations, Joyce. So tomorrow, Ben's going to send out the recording of this core team call and of the call 2 weeks ago. And 2 weeks ago is where I taught a laser talk and did an extended training on writing letters to the editor. I won't do that training here, but one key component was Googling the name of your newspaper and the phrase letters to the editor submission criteria to find out the number of words you're allowed. I mean, Ryan was only given 150 words in his paper, and how to send it in by email or pasting in on their website. The other was looking in your paper for an article that would be a good angle for a letter on enacting a 28th Amendment to overturn Citizens United. Now, I might go back to Ryan in a moment ask what
Laura Nipmeyer actually raised her hand. Laura, did you have a letter?
Laura, what do you want to tell us?
Well, I wanted to say that I wrote a letter to the editor of my local paper, which is the local paper of record in my township, which is a small paper in a rural environment. We are in a very contentious legislative district where, of course, our representative is home this week and facing two very contentious home town halls this week, which have taken over all kinds of national media. It's the Leonard Lansing district, which you may have
Sorry, and your letter was published?
Well, I'm confused about this because actually I know quite well the editor of my local paper.
Yes.
I sent my letter in compliance with their 150 word limit in time for their publication on Thursday morning, and I've had deadlines for 48 hours, which has been quite frustrating because I didn't know how quickly they turned over the online communication. And I think it's just because, this is my complete speculation, but I think it's just because they were overrun by the local news with the.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. How often does the paper come out? Is it once or twice a week or every day?
It's weekly. It's weekly on Thursday morning.
Okay.
So you have to tune in by, Tuesday morning in order to be finished on Thursday.
Well, here's my bottom line. If you've looked at the paper and it wasn't in, you could call the editor in this case, especially since you know them, and just say, I sent a letter to the editor in, and maybe I missed your deadline, and I was just curious whether you know whether you're going to run it or not. And they could say, well, I don't know, I have to go check, or no or not, or whatever, and then you can try again, basically. But bottom line is congratulations on doing that. If you don't mind, I'd like to just walk us through this last bit. So what I'd like everyone to do right now, if you're near a computer and you can go online, go to one of your local newspapers and let me know if you find an article or opinion piece that would give you a good angle for discussing a 28th Amendment overturning Citizens United. So if you can, we're just going to take a second and I'm going to turn it back to Ben. Please go online if you can. Look at the titles of the various articles or op-eds or opinion pieces and let us know by pushing 1 on your keypad if you found an article that would be a good angle for a letter. And I'm going to give you one that I found. I looked this afternoon in the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, and there was an article, and you keep looking while I'm talking. I want to see if we can find another one. There was an article titled Senate Republicans New to Majority Unveil Advancing Minnesota Agenda, More Jobs, Infrastructure Repairs, pledged as our tax cuts and spending. And I started a letter to the editor because I thought I could use that article. And the letter starts like this. To the editor, I read with interest the article outlining Senate Republicans' legislative agenda. One item should be added to the top of their list of priorities. The recently introduced We the People bill, instructing Congress to enact a 28th Amendment overturning Citizens United. And then I would keep going from there. I just happen to know there's a We the People bill because of the new group there. Has anyone on the call found an article in your paper that you think would be a good angle for a letter to the editor on a 28th Amendment? Press 1 on your keypad and wait for Ben to call on you. And let's just hear what you found and see if you just get people in this kind of idea of finding articles that would be a great starting off or angle for a letter discussing overturning Citizens United or a 28th Amendment. Ben, do we have anyone who's been able to find an article that they could use as an angle? Do you have any ones? Who is that?
Yeah, we do. I don't have a last name. Chris. Chris.
Hi.
Where are you, Chris?
I'm in Southwest Virginia near Blacksburg.
Great, go ahead.
Okay, this is our local paper. One of them is the Roanoke Times.
Yes.
And it was a column that was written, dated the 21st, and it just says editorial, if Democrats are serious about winning, here's how they'll start. And it's a whole breakdown of what it is, local Democrats, local progressives need to do. And it mentions pretty much what you had said before as well, the importance of grassroots efforts and, letter writing campaigns. And, even though we live in an age of electronic this and that, she too says very vehemently, there's nothing better than the power of the pen.
Yeah.
And writing well thought out, but obviously diplomatic, being this area.
So let me just throw out a sentence for you. This is great. With regard to your op-ed or editorial, what Democrats can do, whatever the rest of the title was, Here's one thing Democrats and Republicans can do to make a difference. And that would be enact the 28th Amendment overturning Citizens United. One of the things that's in the way for getting real change in a myriad of areas is the money washing, whatever. But you get an idea how I took the title that you found and kind of began to angle it. I acknowledged the idea of the article and kind of added to it or took it to another angle. Great, Chris, thanks.
Yeah. So I think that's a brilliant idea. I think I'm just agreeing with you. I think it's a brilliant idea to be inclusive, that it's not a Democratic battle or a Republican battle, but it's an American battle and a global battle.
Yes, brilliant. So fabulous. So here's the deal. I'm going to turn it back to Ben. The point is, from 2 weeks ago, I know of 3 people who've already had a letter or op-ed published or about to be published. So we're urging people on the call to give it a shot, go out on a thin branches. If you need to listen to last 2 weeks ago call and the laser talk, or you want to listen to the full training on the last call, it was sent recently and Ben can send it again. And we really urge you to take a stab at finding an article and writing a letter to the editor. And in 2 weeks from now, we're going to ask some people who've had a letter published in these last 2 weeks coming up. If you get one published, please write Ben G at AmericanPromise.net and let them know ahead of time. And let's see if these 2 sessions and the 2 next month, we can walk away with 5 or 10 or 15 people who've had letters to the editor published, and more who have a feeling that they're part of a team that can get this done. Ben, let me send it right back to you for a sign-off. Thanks, everyone.
That's great. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. And great questions, everyone. I wanted to get to some time at the end to get to some questions. However, we try to keep these calls to 60 minutes nice and short. So if you do have questions, like I said, send it along to Ben G at AmericanPromise.net. But before we sign off, let's just go through some of the next steps on how to get involved with the Citizen Uprising to overturn Citizens United with the 28th Amendment. So one of the most critical things that we can do is, if you're willing to help organize a public event in your community, we can send a guest speaker and we can make it a real educational and organizing opportunity for your community, and we can use this as the beginning of some real great uprising action in your community. So reach out to me and let me know if you are up for hosting or getting a public event organized in your community. The next one is to start a core team or an American Promise Association in your community by filling out and returning the short form that I'm going to be sending all of you on this call by email tomorrow. And on the form, you can let us know how you want to get involved in that way. And then number 3 is use this great training from Sam and the Citizen Action Center on our website to write and send a letter to your local newspaper. And when you have one published, do a little victory dance and let me know about it, again, at beng at AmericanPromise.net. So along with the short form, just to reiterate, I'm going to send each of you tomorrow so you can let us know how you want to get involved. There's going to be an RSVP link for the next call and a recording of tonight's call and the February 9th call that Sam had mentioned when we did a lot more deeper dive into the training on writing letters to the editor. So I wanted to end, and I usually like to end with this short quote. I saw this a couple days ago, and folks, this is serious work, but we have to remember to keep our sense of humor about us, and it's kind of why I picked this quote. But this quote comes from our quote-unquote friend, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've ever quoted Ted Cruz, but maybe we can even get Senator Ted Cruz to join us one of these days. Senator Cruz was on record saying, "Stopping bad things is a significant public service." And I'll repeat that. He says, "Stopping bad things is a significant public service." So together, let's stop the corporate takeover of our government. Let's stop billionaires from buying our elections. Let's stop the hyperpartisanship. And let's start to laugh more, love more, and lift each other up more. Again, I want to thank all of our great guest speakers and all the wonderful participants on this call that had great questions. I think I'd like to unmute everyone, and if you can, just give our great public speakers a quick round of applause and a hoot and holler and let us know that you had fun.
Dynamite conversation. Great ideas, everybody. I love you. Keep up the resistance, everybody.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much, and we will speak with everyone in 2 weeks on the next core team call, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.